史丹利就是史丹利的寓言这款游戏，之前一直想要直播，但是因为它是英文，所以我又怕你们看不太懂，所以今天怎么讲？今天我终于把这游戏的中文版弄到手了，虽然是简体中文，但是将就点吧，哈哈，看得懂就好。好，怎么今天都没有人啊？好，然后这个游戏的是由那个 Source 引擎，就是起源引擎开发。起源引擎是一个怎么讲？就是大家如果知道战力时空这一系列的话，应该对起源引擎应该不会太陌生。那还有就是传送门2，还有其他一些很多的游戏，它的引擎都是，哎呦，香蕉哥安安哦，婢女回来。就是很多的游戏引擎都是由起源引擎开发，是一个非常非常精细的一个引擎。那接下来大家好，这游戏跟哲理有关啊，大家就等大家看一下。那大家如果有兴趣的话，可以帮我宣传一下，因为今天好像没有太多人，但我希望很多人可以看到这款游戏，因为这游戏真的是非常非常的特别。好，那你正在玩史丹利的寓言。接下来会是开场动画，那你大概就跟你讲说这款游戏到底是在讲什么故事。The end is never the end. The end is loading. 好，我应该写点歌系统关闭中了，抱歉，我忘记把点歌系统弄回来了。我今天没有开点歌系统，不好意思。Loading. 哦，好了。
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy.
Stanley 是幸福的。
And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company
这些年来从未在公司遇到这种事，只剩他一人的情况。
Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
所以我现在在控制。
But Stanley simply couldn't handle the pressure.
我没有关门。
Make a decision. What if a crucial outcome fell under his responsibility? He had never been trained for that. No. This couldn't go any way except badly. The thing to do now, Stanley thought to himself, is to wait. Nothing will hurt me. Nothing will break me. In here I can be happy forever. I will be happy. Stanley waited. Hours passed, then days. Had years gone by? He no longer had the ability to tell. But the one thing he knew for sure, beyond any doubt, was that if he waited long enough, the answers would come.
原来关门还有故事。
Someday, they would arrive. Soon, very soon now, this will end. He will be spoken to. He will be told what to do. Now it's just a little bit closer. Now it's even closer. Here it comes.
啊？啊？门打开了。我发现它这时钟是那个呢，是一样的，就是跟我时间是现在发生的时间。
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of
没
his
有同事的
co-workers.
踪迹。我知道这是选择性游戏。等待输入，输入与接收，用户名已授权。什么？不能关掉吗？嗯。
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
走进了左边的门。嗯。
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
如何解决与同事之间的不和？生闷气，给同事脸色看，因为同事们不支持你而讨厌他们。什么东西？使用幻灯片来安抚员工，确保你幻灯片在标题处有圆润的蓝色图像，并给所有文字加上谐音。每个人都是独特的，尤其是你。下一张。此幻灯片的幻灯片总数。图表幻灯片，图表幻灯是什么？同一张幻灯片上表达同样信息图表的比率。OK， 我可以把投影片关掉，投影在哪？别再跟爹什么？感激老板1分钟，在你的感激老板1分钟工作表上圈出你最喜欢老板特点的前20名。填完后起一次3份提交给你什么？请牢记一个巴掌拍不响，而你有2个巴掌。什么？未来梦想是什么？春假。天哪，光是这个就有点好笑哎！光是这张单子，杂物室。可以开。
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's
上楼
office.
去了老板的办公室。OK， 我上了，去了老板的办公室。执行官浴室。Hello。
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life.
没有活人的痕迹。
Unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. and so the boss had assigned it an extra secret
超级隐秘的密码2845。
2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
284，可是你刚跟我讲啊，那我不就知道了吗？然后我现在是 Stanley 不是吗？
Yet incredibly, by simply pushing the buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
OK， 有秘密基地的意思吗？我好暗哦。什么都看不到。啊哈，下楼，上是上还是下？I know, right? This game is so ridiculous. 我现在是完全遵照着这个人的这个旁白的指示在行动。我应该可以不遵照他来行动啊。
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him?
Yeah, you have a boring
this
job.
question would not go unanswered for long. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Mind Control Facility. Escape. 所以说这边有条逃生的道路，我现在可以选 ，I can choose where to go. Go to escape. 好吧，我进去看一下。精神控制装置。Mind Control Facility. What is this?
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
这个叫史丹利的寓言。史坦利的寓言。
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Mind Control Facility. What is that? Okay.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No. He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never. It was unthinkable.
Never.
Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was
Never.
the heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Okay, I'll disconnect it. 他说我现在要把那个精神控制装置给摧毁 ，destroy it. This button. 我记得这个是传送门里的东西吧，好像。精神控制闲置中，等待输入。Okay.
And when at last he found the source of the room's power, he knew it was his duty, his obligation, to put an end to this horrible place and to everything it stood for.
Okay. You finished? Okay. Oh. Hello? Hello?
Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away.
啊，这样就透关了吗？
Even as the immense door slowly opened,
I broke the
Stanley
game.
reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp?
Can I go
What other
back?
mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know.
Wow.
It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door. Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way.
I will show you
right
what
now,
the point of this
things
game.
were
What the
meant to
point of
happen.
this game? Lately,
And Stanley was happy.
Stanley is happy. 还不错嘛 ，Not bad. 好，那个，这是一个结局。This is a ending, one of, the many ending. 那我这一次试试看。
Stanley's office was a distant memory. What did it look like? There was a computer, perhaps, and a painting. Was it a painting or a photo? He could no longer recall. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Oh. Huh? What the fuck? What the fuck?
At first, Stanley assumed he'd broken the map until he heard this narration and realized it was part of the game's design all along. He then praised the game for its insightful and witty commentary into the nature of video game structure and its examination of structural narrative tropes. So, now that you're here, what do you think? Isn't this a fun and unique place to be? Why don't we take a minute just to drink it all in? Okay, I'm over it now. What do you think? Are you sick of this gag yet?
Yes, I am.
Ah.
No.
Then in that case, we'll continue. But now, here comes the real question. What do you think would have happened if you had told me that you wanted this to stop? Do you think it would have been particularly different?
Yes.
Would I have taken the same idea but rephrased it superficially to fit that answer? Perhaps you never would even have thought of it if I hadn't brought up the issue in the first place. Oh, now think about it. Will it be worth it for you to restart and then come back here just to do the other option? Clearly, this whole gag takes some time. What if the other option is even longer? How long will you spend in total just to have heard all the narration?
Fuck you,
And this is
Stanley.
Rich, Perhaps you just played the other option, and now you come to see what happens in this one. So, what do you think? Which choice was the better one? Imagine if you had selected continue on your first playthrough, how tantalizing it would be not knowing what happens if you pick the other option. Indeed, you are one of the lucky ones. Though if the other option is really miserable to listen to, then perhaps you're not. In fact, I'm just going to say that no one who's listening to this is lucky. Well, I've built up the other option so much that I'm going to stop talking and leave you to your decision whether to come back here, continue with the game, or just sit in this spot forever. Anyway, cheers.
Fuck you, Stanley.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers. At first, Stanley assumed he'd broken the map, until he heard this narration and realized it was part of the game's design all along. He then praised the game for its insightful and witty commentary into the nature of video game structure.
好，快点跳过，我要按4。
Examination of structural narrative tropes. So,
what
now
will
that you're
happen
here,
when I
what do you
press the
think?
yes?
Isn't this a fun and unique place to be? Why don't we take a minute just to drink it all in? Okay, I'm over it now. What do you think? Are you sick of this gag yet?
Are you really just
I
a
don't know how to say
program?
this politely, but you could literally just hit escape and restart the game any old time you want, like right now. You could have done it just then. Now would also be an appropriate time to quit. Any of these points and so many, many more, all of them are appropriate. I'm enjoying what seems to be an internal conflict going on where you are literally unable to act on your own desires to restart the game. So, just to push the envelope, I'm going to try and make this as miserable as possible and see how long you can maintain. There once was a man named Stanley, who people considered so manly. But the truth must be told, he was not very old and was quite particularly gangly.
Okay, I'm done.